Hi everyone, my name is Rob and welcome to this video about Fallout and specifically the Fallout board game. So this video is really designed for people that enjoy Fallout the video game, may not be huge board gamers and just want to know whether the Fallout game translates well to a board and whether they should pick it up. I'm going to talk about 6 things that I think you should know about if you're considering buying this. Some of them are good, some of them are not so good, and hopefully that will help you work out whether or not you want to pick it up. So without further ado, let's jump into thing number 1. Okay, so number 1 is that this game really feels like Fallout. So what I mean by that is it sort of captures the essence of what a Fallout game is meant to feel like. Now I could spend a 30-minute video talking about what that specifically would be, but for me it's about making the Wasteland fun and exciting and interesting without making it ever too serious, and the game does that really well. It does that via story, which I will talk about soon, but it also does that in the companions that you get, the sort of items that you get, the way that you create the board. All that sort of comes together to make a game that, I mean, from the very first turn it really feels like you're playing a very different Fallout, but definitely a Fallout game, not just a game set in some apocalypse that happens to have the Fallout brand. Okay, so I could talk about mechanics for a really long time, but one thing that I really wanted to show or talk about a little bit is the leveling mechanics. And I want to talk about that just because they do a really good job of translating the video game mechanics into the board game. So in the video game, as you know, if you've played any Fallout games, you have the special attributes and they give you different ways to play the game, and you can rank them up as you level up. You also have traits and perks. In the board game, you do have the special thing again, except it works completely differently. You're going to be doing skill checks by rolling dice, and you can re-roll dice if you have one of those attributes, but you just have to get the attribute. So you'll get a P for perception, and you'll keep it for the entire game, so you don't have to level up all that special stuff. You can also get traits if you have the P, but then when you level, you get another P, you trade that in for a trait instead, and the traits are really powerful, really helpful things that you can do, but they're normally one-time things. That's really fun, and the way that it takes kind of a complicated leveling system, an enjoyable but quite in-depth leveling system, and turns it into something that you can just pick up and not have to think too much about and worry about loads of stats like you're playing a game of D&D. So there are multiple different scenarios in the game. That's really cool because it means it's not just a Fallout 4 game. It's got the sort of Fallout 4 style box art, but the game actually takes stuff from Fallout 3 and Fallout 4. So the scenarios that you can play are the Capital Wasteland, the Boston area, the Fort Pitt, the Pit area from Fallout 3, which is a big separate DLC, and then Far Harbor, which is the big DLC, one of the big DLCs from Fallout 4. That's really cool. They don't change huge amounts. What they change is some of the tiles in the game that you'll be exploring, and they'll change the main quest that you're going after. The cool thing about that is you can have a little bit more variation in the game without having to change a ton of rules. One thing that was weird for me was that there's no New Vegas in there, just 3 and 4. I mean, that's fine, but New Vegas was my favourite. The reason I think they did that was because the sort of assets in this desert environment wouldn't work very well with the kind of assets that you can have in 3 and 4, as they're both sort of big abandoned city areas. But that gives the game some variety, and if you're not a big Fallout 4 fan or you're not a big Fallout 3 fan, you've still got different modes to play that you can use that environment with. So Fallout has a story as part of the game. It depends how many board games you've played that have story in them before. They're kind of a big thing now to have these narrative-driven games. Some games use a storybook which you then read through at certain points of the game. Fallout uses these cards which you read through, and they can be quests or individual encounters. They're really fun. There's not too much of a narrative thing, so you're not going to be sitting there reading paragraphs and paragraphs, setting everything up. But what they do is they give you sort of a goal that is thematic and that makes sense in that world of Fallout. So if you're playing the Fallout 4 mission, which is the first mission in the game, you're going to be trying to help the Synths or trying to help the Institute itself and see how that battle takes place. And as you play, because these cards get swapped out, you do a quest, you get another card with different quests on it, you get these branching storylines which are never hugely narratively focused, but they are fun and they keep the game feeling like a Fallout game. Okay, so one thing to bear in mind, it's not necessarily a negative, is the rules in this game. There's quite a lot of them. There's quite a few small things that you need to do every turn to make the game work. I won't go into any of them. What I will say is the rulebook comes in two different sections. One is like a tutorial, and one is more of a glossary appendix for when you get stuck. They're both good. There's nothing wrong with either of the rulebooks themselves. There are a few times I think it could have been a little bit clearer, but I think it's worth mentioning because some video game ball games get really complex to the point where if you're new to ball games, they're just not fun. I'd class something like Dark Souls in that. In Fallout, it's nowhere near that complex, but it's still more difficult than quite a lot of other ball games. So you're going to need to take your time, go through the rules, use the glossary, and I would definitely suggest watching a rules video on YouTube as well, just to get a better idea of the overall gameplay. So the final thing to mention may or may not be a negative for you depending on what you want from a board game. And that's that there's not too much player interaction. When we talk about player interaction for board games, what we tend to talk about is how much time you're going to spend either fighting against or helping or just paying attention to what everyone else is doing in the game. In Fallout, you don't really get a lot of that because there aren't that many points in the game where you can really affect anyone else. You can trade with people, which can be useful if you get an item you don't need, and there are a few cards that let you send enemies after another person or steal one of their companions, but they're pretty rare, and most of the game is going to feel like you and your friends individually sort of going through the wasteland. It's not technically a cooperative game, but it's not really a competitive game either. That was fine and it was fun for our group, but if you really want to play a game to win and to have that competitive experience, Fallout is definitely not the right choice. Okay, so those were the 6 main things after a few games of the ball game that I think are going to be most important to if you're thinking of picking this one up. It is quite expensive compared to, say, buying an old copy of Fallout 3 or Fallout 4 now, but it is a really cool experience. There's solo play as well if you want to play by yourself, although in that case I would generally recommend just playing the video game. But hopefully that's helped you decide whether or not to pick this one up. So thank you very much for watching this. Please drop a comment below if you have anything else to say about Fallout the board game or if you've checked it out already, and subscribe if this was useful to you. Thank you very much. Good video, that was good, I enjoyed that.
Hey Rob.
Oh, hi Jamie!
Hey, yeah, man, I just thought I'd pop in and say that if you like Fallout videos, there's a big height difference here. If you like Fallout videos, I've just made one for the same YouTube channel, and you can click right over there. It should be appearing there.
But your one, Jamie, is for people who haven't played, the 6 people that haven't played Fallout.
I haven't played Fallout, it's really bad, I shouldn't be saying that on the internet. But if you're like me and you haven't played Fallout, or you just want to know more about Fallout the board game, click over here to hear my thoughts.
Hear Jamie's thoughts.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Okay.
See how that goes.